So we might as well get this ball rolling.
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's a brand new day.
Good morning.
Now prepare to experience the most outrageous man on radio.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale. This is insane.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
And welcome once again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you ever have one of those mornings where you wake up and everything's like just going great, and then one thing happens and you go like, oh man. Anyway, the coffee's hot. It's 5:24 a.m. We're like pushing the boundaries of some of the latest starts to my shows yet. But I had a fairly good night's sleep. We will see some coal trucks today, maybe. I doubt it. It's Saturday, and it's the 2nd of April, 2022. And that's kind of what we're going to delve into today. We're going to talk about time. And I've got this image of a man passing through a time portal in some ancient site. And actually it's kind of a colorized and somewhat messed with Al Stewart album graphic. If you're old enough to go back that far.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And of course, the title card that brought you here was me in space out in the backyard looking at being photographed through space. Is there anyone out there? But there's no need to have two pictures of my face up. I just don't see the purpose of that. Don't even know how big this has to be, to tell you the truth. So anyway, the other title of the show, the alternate title of the show, of course, is Alternate Reality Revisited or Mass Insanity Revealed. And I put it in the first chat. This is clearly not the 2022s on the timeline I was born in. And I kind of believe that. I had some really weird semi-dream before I woke up today. It wasn't so much, almost a waking dream in a sense that I wasn't really completely, unconscious, or it didn't feel like I was in a REM state because I was conscious of like the room and the time and like I should be getting up soon or something like that. I don't know if I'm situated properly or not here. And, despite the fact that I altered this, either this house is gradually tilting or not, but I had straightened out the monitor to compensate for the on-air light being crooked. But it seems like there's a slight slant to the on-air light, despite all of my efforts to straighten it out. Which means the house may well just be in the process of just tilting over. Man, it was windy last night. And I noticed something in the back between me and my neighbor's house. There's a little, where her garage is and a fence on the other side of my garage. There's like this, it's not really a walkway. It's too thin to be a walkway. But I noticed I had put a thing there to block anybody from getting in to that area. There's no reason for anyone to be in there, but it is a conceivable spot where someone could jump the fence. It's an area I and will focus on in the coming weeks, with security. I'm probably going to put an 8-foot fence in that whole area. Now, I don't know if it was the lady next door messing with something or not, or some curiosity seeker, or the fact that there were really strong winds last night and maybe the wind just blew this thing open. I don't know. Noticed it out of my window from the second floor. It's off in the distance because my yard goes way back, but there's a light back there in the alley, and it is white. It's just one of those lattice things, just a preventative measure. People see a thing and they have no idea how the thing is connected, and they just move on. But they see something opened and they're like, maybe I'll go in there. There might be something in there of interest. And like I say, I'm dealing with this situation here to begin with a psychotic, perhaps, dark, someone who works in the dark arts, a witch, dark witch, not a good witch, but someone who messes with the dark arts, right? The demiurge, right? Some of those scary people. Yeah. Like, what was that guy's name? He was the most evil man alive, some people say. The heck? His name will come to me. I get taxed myself. Things are going too well to get caught up in that. But anyway, I ate fairly healthy yesterday, gained a pound. I had lost technically I'm a pound. I know this sounds weird, some guy talking about this, but the point was I'm 5 pounds above where I reached that nice weight that I wanted to be. And then I lost a couple of pounds because I had done some walking. But yesterday I had purchased some candy to give to mail out to somebody, not for myself. Of course I sampled it, but it was like some Welch's grapes, allegedly healthy jelly beans, and I had a couple of these like white chocolate type of peanut butter cups or whatever the heck they are. That was just enough that normally I would have taken 2 pounds off because of that walk. I know my own body. I do that. I walk down to that grocery store, walk back up this hill and stuff, carrying things or whatever. And it usually, like, in the grand scheme of things that day, depending on what I ate, it's usually 2 pounds off the next morning. But it was only 1 pound, not even a full pound. So the sugar in those, little bit of jelly beans and a couple of tiny baby peanut butter cups, those little tiny ones. White chocolate, no less. Anyway, that's my story. That's what I did. I don't know. It's weird.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
Well, like I say, I was feeling okay, and then I had to deal with a cat issue this morning. And later on today, today's the day I have to give the cat its stuff in its mouth, its medicine. It's every other day now. He goes to the vet on Monday, thank God. I'm gonna get some kind of hopefully professional intervention to see what's going on, because he's hasn't been eating as much food as he should be, and anyway, I had to clean up a mess today, and I broke down and gave him 2 of these treats, which I hope don't lead him to lose it. I don't know what to do. It's an animal. It's confused. It doesn't understand this, biological changes. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. It's this idea that the foods for both humans and animals are full of so many things that they've distorted our lifespans and are killing them off and causing us to have procedures. And big pharma, big ag, and big medicine, and I guess big tech in a sense are all making high profits on it, just like the war-profiteers are making money on these wars. And the Fed's making money by just creating fiat currency or digital currency out of thin air, and the list goes on. Politicians are getting rich day trading, using on Wall Street. We've got runaway inflation, high-priced oil, and all these kinds of things, but basically the product itself hasn't changed the cost. They're just taking advantage of what they call supply chain or demand or something like that. But in reality, if you look into it, it's not what they say. It's like someone once commented, and I don't remember who it was who actually said it. A number of, I guess, left-leaning authors. When I used to read heavily, I don't read as heavily as I used to. I probably will read more in the summertime when I'm outside, assuming I get rid of this rodent. Yesterday, I poured Clorox down in certain areas as a deterrent, not as as a killer. Because I don't know where the nest is, but I know these places it had come. I was looking for ammonia, but I was on a limited budget because I had to, the postage to send a tiny box the size of an old-fashioned VCR. Actually, you couldn't fit a VCR in it. I've done this before on the show. Small box like that, right? Is $9.43. And if you don't believe me, I'll see if I can hold this up without giving away some personal information. Not that I care about my own personal information. It's just other people's information. Look at the price there. This is a postal thing. You can see it, I think. $9.45. This is the receipt from postage. All right. This was to send out a little gift with some some candy in it for somebody, which I figured this was the only best time to do it. And I've limited funds right now. So they did have ammonia there at the grocery store, but it was just too expensive. So there was a smaller thing of Clorox or bleach, actually generic bleach. I don't want to even say it wasn't really Clorox. It was bleach, the same thing. And so I bought that. And a couple of pieces, and these these cheap jelly beans that were only like $1 or something, but they said Welch's, grape and juice jelly beans. I figure, okay, well that's good, maybe I know there's high fructose corn syrup and stuff, but at least it's like juice, as opposed to some totally purely high fructose corn syrup with a drop of some kind of magical coloring and flavor in it. And that was it. And I walked back, sampled a couple as I was putting them in the package. That's what I did. And I read somewhere that, some woman, I saw a video where a woman had a rodent in her garage, and she had put ammonia on rags and strategically placed them around, and it chased the thing out. The odor, their noses are so sensitive. But as she said, I'll say the same thing. Don't mess around with bleach or ammonia unless you take the proper precautions, read the labels, and really consider doing that, because they're poisons, all right? They can poison pets. They could burn you. There's all kinds of things. But anyway, I'm just, the man asked me what I did, and I'm just telling you what I did. This is an ongoing thing. I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at this rodent if it takes, over the next several weeks, because I have to get my seeds. I've got to get this garden started. I'm already behind several weeks because of it. Because these things go after seeds. Because that's what it's coming to now. It's going to the bird feeder. And again, it's not on my property. It's on the neighbor's property. That's where the nest supposedly is. And I can see it coming through the fence. And I've already concreted, but I ran out of concrete and mortar. I had some bags of concrete and mortar in my garage, that I had been using. but I finished them off patching various holes where I saw this thing was coming through. But they just find a new hull. And so yesterday, the latest hole, latest area it was like hopping through. That's where I poured down some of this Clorox. And then there was another, like I think it was a temporary hole over by my pond. I poured some around that area. Both areas, well, the one area was close to where I have this secondary grapevine. But quite frankly, I don't care if that grapevine grows. If it kills the grapevine, if that got into the roots or something, or so be it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's why I would really wish I would have had ammonia, because they use ammonia in fertilizer. And, you know, having filtered through the soil, it might actually not necessarily had any detrimental effects to plants. In fact, it could have had some positive effects, but at least it wouldn't have been as detrimental as bleach, I should say. Scratch that Clorox. Bleach in general, which is just some kind of, I don't know, crazy poison. I see there were a drop or two on my black sneakers, then it instantly, those two spots turn. I didn't realize it splashed back at me, and they turned like orange. Black turned instantly orange when I was in the house. I don't care. They're just mess around shoes. But yeah, that's ongoing. The cat's illness is ongoing. Monday, I guess I'll know more after the visit to the vet. Today, I'll know more after I try to put that medicine in its mouth and see if it holds that down. Problem is, it has, I don't think it held down the last time I put it in, and that's why I'm afraid that it's got these problems that it's got. I don't know what to do. Otherwise, I had a decent night's sleep. And apart from snacking on some of those couple of jelly beans and a couple of, miniature peanut butter cups or whatever the heck they were, I had a very healthy salad yesterday. I really only have like one big meal. I actually snacked on a little bit of salsa with some like flax meal crackers or chips or something, but I mean not much. I mean that was my combined meal, and then I had this outdoor walk, and did some walk outside. I live a fairly healthy life, and so I try to move around and do something active every day, and I eat healthy. I mean extremely healthy. The contents of my salad is like ridiculous. Like, sometimes there's like 30 ingredients in a small bowl of salad. No, I'm not like eating some giant, huge bowl. I'm talking about a bowl of salad. I mean, to name off the top of my head would be virtually impossible. We're talking assorted dark greens, broccoli, cauliflower. Of course, I have turmeric, fresh chopped garlic. I put rosemary in there, as a seasoning, oregano as a seasoning. There were some cherry tomatoes. Let's see, chopped chives, real onion chives. Let's see, what else was in there? Man, a bunch of stuff in there yesterday. Of course, some apple cider vinegar with the mother. A little bit of lemon in there, which is good. And then, of course, extra virgin olive oil. Try to think of some of the other content items. I'll pour in some flax meal, some ground flax seeds for fiber, that was in there. I think of some of the other solid items that it would have been in there. I mean, sometimes I'll put artichokes in there. There were probably some sliced red bell peppers, I believe, which are good in vitamin C. Colored vegetables, are good, are usually higher. Like the red bell peppers are like I think the highest in vitamin C. What else is in that package of mine? Ginger, another good thing for you. Of course, I had my Chonka Piedra and milk thistle and that stuff. What else? I don't have any list of those things in front of me right now. But I know I'm missing stuff. But yeah, it's like, I literally throw the kitchen sink in there, depending on what I have. If I have beets and egg, like a hard, sometimes I'll make. In fact, I have to do that today because I've got some eggs. I'm going to make some pickled eggs with red beets and apple cider vinegar. I should have bought some white vinegar because it's a lot cheaper. and it does the pickling just as easy. But, all those you name the healthy item and I put it. Oh, kale was in there. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not going to tax the mind. It was just, put it this way. Nobody eats salads as healthy as I do, And sometimes I'll put salmon or sardines, oily fish, that type of thing, which is good for the heart, good for the body. Just don't overdo it. They say because of mercury and stuff. So use iodized salt, iodine, I think. You have to make sure, at one time we had iodine deficiency in the U.S., but a lot of people are getting away from salt. This is an interesting thing people don't think about. But they cured the problems that we were having because of the lack of iodine in our diet, because it's something necessary in small dosage. And that's why they have iodized salt. That was also their rationale behind putting fluoride in water. Though fluoride in water, I don't think was such a good idea. I believe that the area that I live in, they do not fluoridate this water. It was a financial decision because of the cost of putting it in. Now I'm hoping that they've kept that up, but I've never heard it. There's no news today. And it's not the same as it used to be and you don't talk to people, and how would you find out? I'd have to call the water department? Are they even in charge? There is no water department. There's the Water and Sewer Authority, which is a private company that you get an answering machine. Anyway, I drink bottled water primarily, so my only exposure to that would be washing my face and taking a shower or something. Though I don't like the idea of it being in my plants. I do water the garden sometimes with the hose. When it's not raining often. Though I use rainwater, I collect rainwater, and I use that in my garden. And I put a screen and a filter over my rainwater collection barrel. So, like a charcoal thing. I have to get a new one this year. Usually get those at the box stores. The type of things they use in HVAC systems, but it's just basically a charcoal type thing. And I'll put a screen and a brick holding it down, and the water comes down from my drain pipe, and then it goes through that into the thing. So it's like kind of charcoal filtered, and the screen keeps any big particulate matter. And then down at the bottom, I just have screwed in a traditional thing you'd have where you hook your hose to your house. All right, we're 23 minutes into this show, and we're talking about our topic or not? I don't think so. Alternate reality revisited, mass insanity revealed. This is clearly not the 2022s. And as I was saying before, is there anyone out there? And the idea is that, I was having, like I said, I was talking about this dream, half waking dream, half dream right before I woke up, whatever you want to call it. And it was me and somebody else, and it's as if we were being hooked up to some kind of brain wiry thing with our brains. And we were in some kind of alternative reality that had somehow shifted us into that, or did something that affected us in some way that we were perceiving things in a different way, or we were on a different plane of existence. This is a lot of like what people who do hallucinogenic things or DMT, that kind of stuff. They have these weird, experiences, psilocybin or something. And then they see things, or they they become enlightened. That LSD experience, right? And it's like changes you, or you think you've seen something. Something becomes more clearer, and sometimes that stuff stays with somebody their whole life. It's weird. I never did the DMT thing. I've had mushrooms, and I did LSD when I was younger, but I didn't do mega dosage, just enough to, be get the effect, understand what it is, type of thing, see. But no, this wasn't like that. This wasn't trippy. This was more in line with this. As of late, I've been using the word being puzzled a lot in different contexts. Context of like the people, the powers that be, puzzled by what their real end goals are. Puzzled by society and people in general. Puzzled by how gullible people are. All of those kinds of things. Just puzzled by everything. What appears to be mass insanity. But what more concerned with today in talking about is the timeline. And the year 2022. And I've often touched on this, in passing, but I've never really delved deeply into it. And that's what I want to do. In other words, I've often said, growing up, I was always a sci-fi person. I wasn't like, in my family was a fairly, I don't know. My mother was basically a painter, sculptor. She was like an artist. In later years, her work was exhibited in some galleries, and so she was recognized even at a later age. I mean, she was a talented woman, and she's still alive. She's 88 and a half. She's living down in Florida right now. She's still basically on her own. I mean, she's in a managed care facility kind of, but it's like, she has her own apartment, own refrigerator, you know what I mean? In other words, the managed part of it is they have a cafeteria type of stuff. So she still is independent, But even later in life, she got, somebody who trained under Segovia or something. I mean, she actually learned classical guitar too, on top of the fact that she created sculptures, and she did all these oil paintings and all that stuff. She was a singer when she was younger. I mean, she had an incredible voice too. She was like a quite the Renaissance woman. And I guess some of that stuff had rubbed off on me, how I ended up writing books and recording 50 songs and the things that drive me to do the creative things I've done. But, she had, her talent, artistic talents were, remarkable. And I don't really think I come close to it, particularly in, in some of the arts that, as far as the painting and that stuff. I haven't dabbled in that, and I wanted to. So I really haven't tested myself in that area. And I do have this garage. I just wish I could afford to get a dumpster, for a day, and just get out there and just completely empty my garage into a dumpster and have them just haul it away. And then if wood wasn't so expensive, get a pile of 2x4s and a couple of rolls of insulation, and some plywood instead of drywall, because the hell with I don't care about looking at drywall walls. Besides, it's a garage. And just clean that room out and just make it a work, like a workshop. It's a workshop. Half of it's a workshop now, but to make it a workshop where I could use as a workshop at a studio, artist studio, painting, creative studio, as opposed to this up front, which is a recording studio for all practical purposes. But anyway, that was that background. And my father was a very intelligent man, but he worked his whole life, retired fairly early, retired at 62, like I would recommend everyone do. If you have the opportunity. I know that's going to be changing in the coming years. They're pushing that back. And I know they also dangle this carrot of saying, if you wait till 66 and a half or 67 or whatever, you'll get all this extra money. But just to be on a quick aside on that, but think about the money you would be getting from 62 to 66 and a half. That's 4.5 years. Even if you were only getting like $1,000, right, a month from Social Security, that's $12,000 a year times 4 years is $48,000. Add in that other half a year or so, you're over $50,000 you're throwing away. You see what I mean? That's why they dangle and say, wait till you might not live this long, so wait another 5 years. So yeah, he was smart enough to retire at 62, and he lived to be 80. He made it to 80, which I'd love to make it at least to 80, but my mom's 88. And I don't know how I got on that. Any tangents I get on, it just bothers me. But, on topic, maybe we'll get back to it or not. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that I was talking about being a child. And, my parents growing up were, we were pretty much, I grew up in this environment where you were, an artist and a potential intellectual who unfortunately had to move his work into being an entrepreneur, as opposed to, he could have been, my father probably could have been a college professor if he would have went that route. But he chose to raise 3 children, and so he was the breadwinner in a day and age when you had one person primarily being, raising the money to support the family. And we had a house and a car and a, little tiny yard. And we were a detached house, we were the basic, for that time, we were the classic family, right? And so I was somewhat, so there was like free thinker. You were allowed to think, you weren't restricted. Some people were restricted, or some people were just left to just wander around. I wasn't, I was basically in the house, until I got older. You know what I mean? Until I, later on in high school, I was, nobody bothered me. I got into a rock band, and I'd go out, and I could even come home smelling like alcohol, and I really didn't. No one bothered me, But I wasn't one of those kids that in 8th grade was smoking pot and being out or whatever. No, I was at home until I really got of age. And remember, when I was 8, it was the drinking age was 18 when I turned. I was right at the end, right before they changed the drinking age to 21. I was like one of the last, the last age group, the last people, generation, whatever you're going to call it, that where the drinking age was 18. So you were truly a man. Of course, you could go to Vietnam at 18 too. So that wasn't like, that was the whole thing. If you're old enough to die for your country, you should be able to have a drink. That was the idea. But anyway, be that as it may, growing up as a younger child, younger than that, I was reading science fiction books and other books and things like that. I was always interested in like the future, when I was young. And so it never, in my wildest imagination, and I had a good imagination, still do, and still like science fiction and things like that. What I imagined at the year 2000, let alone the year 2022, that we would be living in such a primitive society. And you say, oh my God, look at the chips. And yeah, I watch all these things. I know there's some NVIDIA chip out that's coming out, an AI chip that's going to be released in the third quarter of this year. It probably will push GPT-4 out, if you know what that is. AI currently is GPT-3. But this new chip is designed for AI. It's cloud AI, which is interesting. That's how Amazon works with its Echo Dot type of thing and stuff, and Siri and all those. They're all connected to the cloud. Try asking it a question if your internet goes out and it says, I can't respond to that. There's no internet connection. I had that happen to me yesterday, actually. The internet went out for 10 minutes for some reason. And that's a good way to test to see if your internet's working. I was watching something on, on my smart TV, so to speak, my Fire TV I have, and it was just spinning around. And I noticed that my settings, that my Wi-Fi was, connection was perfect, but it looked like there wasn't an internet coming in. So if you ever if you're just curious, and in my case, I would have to have gone all the way downstairs to check where the internet comes in, because I've run a wire up through the ceiling to my Wi-Fi router. Be that as it may, I just asked my Echo Dot what the weather was, and it said it couldn't respond to that because it could not connect to the internet. Anyway. So there's some amazing technologies, particularly in the area of AI chips. The new Apple chips and what those things can do are amazing. Obviously, in gaming, the quality, right, of visuals has improved tremendously. We really are approaching a point where you could, photorealistic imagery. I've used it here. In previous title cards, and I did it on the beard, the show with me with the beard. If you watch that show to the very end, I actually came on as the bearded person, and that beard and that hairdo was actually produced 100% using, current technology, which is amazing. Because it's able to fixate and define the face only without affecting the background. It's quite interesting. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that, we don't need to look at this pond, but I can show you, just the goofy, there's, how people use this stuff is goofy. I was going to use this as a title card at one point, but, I don't know if I will or won't, but here's here's an example of the state of the art of that technology. So it's able to completely distort my face, neck, and I guess that's my mustache. And this is I did this yesterday. This was like after the show. I was just clowning around with some of this tech. But you see in the background, nothing is altered, and it's clearly, I don't have a green screen or anything like that. So these algorithms are intelligent enough to be able to get that much into it. You can see the ear there. You see? The defined line around there. I did nothing. Okay? I did nothing here to define the outline of my physical head. But that's me with the game over hat on, the glasses and everything. And that's the background, and you see it. So, the state of the art of these things is just quite incredible. Okay. So we acknowledge that. All right. But, and apart from a few other things here or there, that's not what I'm talking about. It's the year 2022. All right. Computers were chugging along. There are some coal trucks kind of got through today. I don't know. What is the, let's check here.
Weekend weather.
I might as well do this just for the heck of it. I'm in the Mid-Atlantic region. Let's see what's going on today. The current temperature outside is 34 degrees. So if you're somewhere around the Mid-Atlantic states, east of the Ohio Valley, not exactly at the coast, but inland, not the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. I mean, what a better way to describe it. It's supposed to get up to 52 degrees today. Tonight, 37. It's 34 degrees now. It's supposed to get down to freezing, by sunrise, which is soon, I think. Usually shows you the sunrise thing, but it's saying now it's 34. And then, of course, Sunday and Monday, there's going to be 70% chance of a thunderstorm, and the temperatures are going to dip into the 40s and the overnights into the 30s. I left my hose outside. Anyway.
Weekend weather.
That's your weekend weather. I left my hose outside because I've been using it to try to go after this rodent. Hopefully it doesn't freeze. It's a pretty sturdy, thick hose, and I don't think just getting 232 is enough. You would have to have a sustained below freezing to get really iced up. This is just what you would call frost. I think we'll have, we'll see frost up till May here sometimes, and we'll get a dusting of snow, I'm sure, before it's said and done. But, I mean, we're in April now, so it's kind of a point where I'm not worried that much about it. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. And, I just have to do what I've got to do. I'm tired. I already used the hose one time, took it back into the garage, and then I brought it back out. It's like, nah, I'm sticking with it outside right now. I don't think we're going to have a problem. Pipe's freezing. So, yeah, it's 2022. We're 22 years into the 21st century, which actually means absolutely nothing to someone born in the year 2000 or even in the 1990s. Because to them, they were a child in the 90s and they're just reaching, the age of reason and adulthood at this point. So they're like, what's this guy talking about? It's the computer age, information age. They're SpaceX. They're going to Mars and back to the moon. Look at all this tech. Smart houses and smart devices. But see, you don't understand that the story 2001: A Space Odyssey was written in the 60s. The movie was made. It was made in the 60s. The movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. I was going to put that in my title card. I was going to put 2022, a spaced out Odyssey, which I still may do. Because when I think about it, I'm going to do that because it's too late for you if you received a copy of this, a notification. But I only have 30 people who get notifications. So I'm going to annotate this card. I'll show it to you when I do it. But the card, originally, you would have seen this. So 2022, a spaced. Actually, I have to change the type to a smaller type. I don't have the Adobe software anymore because they wanted to charge me 50 some dollars a month, to have use of Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, and like Acrobat Pro. And pardon me while I do this. We'll get into that. I like this discussion. Make sure I spelled this right. Yeah, I did. I was never really a good speller. I never was like a guy who memorized my times tables. I know it sounds weird. Maybe it doesn't sound weird. Anyway, here's what I just did. It's my cat. How did that get there? Title card. 2022, a spaced out Odyssey. Is there anyone out there? And so what I was trying to get at, and that was another picture I did yesterday, using the tech of the day. So it's like I have no doubts, I'm not in denial of, I use this technology on a daily basis. Obviously, I'm coming to you, and I have things that you're not even aware of that I utilize as far as technology is concerned. And I have all sorts of security things because, remember, I live in a house where my taxes, mortgage, and insurance are only $200. And that's why I started out talking about, I noticed that fence thing, which is a minor thing that I have to keep an eye on, but I'm always monitoring my property I have multiple cameras, motion detectors, alarms, even potential what could be considered booby traps, though I use as much natural, nature to my advantage as possible. And maybe someday I'll do a show on that, explaining there are actual certain things you can do. I mean, the first thing that would come to mind to the average person would be what they call sticky bushes, or, bushes that have thorns on them. But there are other plants that actually not only have thorns on them, but those thorns emit things, chemicals that can actually cause like a burning like rash, but nothing deadly or nothing, whatever. But I mean, so there are also natural barriers you can create to prevent people from doing things, as well as physical things that I've put on top of fences and stuff that prevent that if someone tried climbing through. I'm kind of regretting that, having done some of that stuff, because I used to get cats jumping into my yard sometimes, some feral cats, and they would drink in my pond. And I think that I have so many of these things now that they're preventing the cats from coming in. And perhaps if I'm thinking about maybe getting a feral cat, or just getting a cat from the SPCA. I have, of course I have a house cat that doesn't go outside. And of course he's not doing too well. I don't know if he's going to make it. It's a sad story. But I've been thinking about adopting a cat, and that's another reason why I wanted to clean up the garage and making the garage his home. Since I spend the better part of the year outside in the backyard, that it wouldn't be like this cat's living alone out there. It would be around me. I would feed it and be its companion. pretty much for the better part of the day and stuff, and it would enjoy that. And at nighttime, then it would protect the property from rodents, right? Excuse me. I just felt a sneeze coming on, and I don't want to sneeze on the air. Back to 2022. So, yeah, 2022, a spaced out odyssey. Because, and this idea of this alternate reality, alternate timeline, what's going on? It's not as if technology hasn't advanced in certain areas. But, there was that whole period of post moon landing to the present day. Well, to then they did the space shuttle program, but then that ended. And then to today, where now you've got Elon Musk and SpaceX doing, pulling up, doing some of the heavy lifting. For a while, our, Russia was supplying, the materials and taking the astronauts to the space station. People forget about that. Our ally Russia post the Cold War. Crazy stuff going on, but I don't want to get into that because that's like I say, that's another one of these weird, it's just really too weird and too bizarre, and there's too many factors going on there, and most of them deal with, the corporatocracy, in that case, war profiteering and stuff like that. But the idea, when you look at a civilization, any civilization, and you think about technology, and you're looking at the quality of life for the people in that civilization. I mean, right? And so the technology that we have today, how is it beneficial in improving the quality of life for the average individual? And the answer is it's not. And people will argue with that. But those who will argue with that are people that are well off. And I don't mean this trying to say, as if this is some socialistic idea. No. When I say well off, I mean the ruling elite or somebody who happens to be lucky in some way and has landed in some upper middle class while it lasts. They're trying to destroy the upper middle class. So if that's you right now and you're disagreeing with me and thinking, this guy's just some socialist weird thing. Well, no, it's completely not. I'm all for free market capitalism and whatever it takes. I have nothing against any of that. What I'm trying to say is that technology has not, reached the majority of people. It has not improved their quality of life, so that there's too many. Again, this will sound repetitive, and I'm not going to harp on it today. I'm just going to say it in passing. Approximately 40,000 people a week die of various ailments that are preventable, treatable, in many cases curable. And just to name a few would be some of these heart-related diseases, type 2 diabetes, obesity, right? Diabetes itself, kidney-related diseases, things of that sort that are basically processed foods, poor diet, and the manner in which we live, our lifestyles of the 2022s, and has taken several years off of our life expectancy. And while that's happening, at the same time, on average, according to government statistics, and those are CDC statistics divided by 52, the annual leading causes of death divided by 52 weeks in a year, so you come up with 40,000 people a week. Think about that. Those type of numbers aren't. Everybody's focus is on something going over in Europe across, these war things. 40,000 people a week are dying right here. Okay? In fact, another 2,000 people a week on average, according to government crime statistics, are being murdered. And our great and glorious law enforcement agencies, most of those are going unsolved because our technology and our focus isn't on our own people. Meanwhile, millions of people are coming across the borders, southern borders, with who knows what carrying what kind of diseases. But yet, if we don't abide by certain controls, we're not allowed to get on an airplane or get on a thing or go into, weren't able to go into stores and all this other stuff. But these persons, coming across the border were allowed to do whatever they wanted to do. They weren't even tested. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying that our technology that we have, it's the same as when they talk about these, like in war zones and in other parts of it. They ignore the fact that we have this satellite technology. They always say, "Oh, for national security, we can't talk about that." But then they show these pictures of things, right? So they admit to it. It's not like it's a secret. It's not confidential, right? They have real-time satellites, right? All over the place. They can view any part of the planet in real time. And it's not like they just have one of them, So when they say that they quit, well, we're not exactly sure what's going on there and who's there. It's like, why are you saying that? In the 1970s, you admitted you could read license plate with spy satellites. License plates. Think about how small a license plate is from, Well, that's 50 years ago. I mean, we're talking about high definition, right? One commercial with that girl. High definition. You don't know what I'm talking about. It's just something that bothers me. Obsessed with. They've got satellites that can show you things in high definition. They can focus a couple of these birds on Ukraine, right? And it'd be like watching TV. And they could zoom in, right? They've got cameras now. They can track people by their gait. They don't even need facial recognition anymore. Do you know what the gait is? It's like how they walk. In other words, at one point, people were wearing masks and all these kinds of things and hoodies and stuff to try to evade the cameras. Now you have to be like John Cleese in Monty Python, the Ministry of Silly Walks, and do that to evade them, because they can actually, you could be wearing a hoodie and a face mask and they could tell it's you by your gait, the way you walk, because that's unique, These things can basically calculate your exact height and then subsequently your weight and watch the way your arms and your legs move and stuff. In other words, it's the same as all the data, the demographic profiles they've accumulated through social media and the internet. Forget about these VPNs. That's just a scam and all that stuff. They know where you are, what you're doing at any given time. These things can see through buildings and stuff. They use that. This stuff is used. Law enforcement uses it. It's not a secret. It's not top secret. This comes out at press conferences from time to time when they talk about things, right? And like I say, if you've ever seen this in one of these shows on TV, like they actually have a show, the FBI. I never really watched that one. But they have these realistic crime dramas, and from time to time they'll show technology and stuff they have. And the thing is, and these movies that they make, I've said this before, those aren't fantasy. If anything, they're watered down technology. In other words, so when you see these fantastical things, they're in cooperation with the government is very much involved in Hollywood. You know, they fund a lot of those productions, and they provide. How do you think they get all these vehicles and the uniforms and all that stuff? Right? See, that's all good. That's recruitment, you know. You know, when they do a show called The FBI and they've got some glamorous girl who's like the lead character, you understand that's recruitment material. That gets people wanting to join the FBI. When you see these things, you know, these shows about certain law enforcement or military and, you know, various things, yeah, they're recruitment. You know, so they have a fund that goes to that. And the technology you see is watered down technology. It's not fantasy, right? DARPA is way ahead. You know, DARPA's got this whole big thing about underground stuff going on right now, like tech for these underground robotics and all kinds of weird stuff. Like they're into this, like trying to hide from the, this thing that they kept classified, this supernova, not like micronova, I should say, that's inevitable, right? And for all I know, they may be going through that time portal to escape it, you know? I mean, that's one of the ideas, you know, that sounds so far out, but you have to remember, this gets back to what I'm trying to say, and I'm going to stay on topic with this, is that though to you, dependent upon your age, the year 2022 may not mean anything. You may be 22, and you're like, or you're 25, and you're thinking, I don't understand what this guy's talking about, the future. It's just 2022. No, you don't understand. This technology, all right, that we've had for 60, even 70 years, all right? If you look at old AT&T video phones, you know, from the 60s, this stuff that we have today is not that groundbreaking, all right? The internet's been around was developed by DARPA, basically, all right? The what they call the GUI, the graphic user interface, was a Xerox PARC project in the 60s that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates both got a look at, you know, where Xerox was using a mouse and a graphical user interface back then, 60 years ago. Okay? These things are not new, right? And the idea of miniaturization, you know, back then the Japanese were the kings of miniaturization. You know, they were, the transistor radio, you know, which I have one back here. The transistor, you know, radios used to be these giant things, which I have one in the back there. I guess I could do this. You see that thing here? That's a radio. That's an AM radio. And look how big it is. There's a speaker over here, and it goes behind that book, right? I just keep this light down and keep these. Anyway, well, you know, they came up with a thing called the transistor radio.
Wow. Yeah. Now somebody might come out and walk that back a little bit, but all right.
So, AM, FM transistor radio. You could lean it on the beach next to your beach towel. Okay? That's the technology. That was miniaturization in the 1960s. They were taking radios like this thing back here and primarily Japanese technology was shrinking down everything into transistors. I mean, the US was doing it too. It's not like they were But some people think, oh, they were using big tube radios and all that stuff. Yeah. But, that was the thing. And then it kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So, that thing you could put an earpiece in it, so anyway, what I'm getting at is that what people don't understand is there was this, somehow the timeline shifted, after that period, somewhere around the 70s, right? 50 odd years ago, right? And, what we have is we have advancement in technology. We have a technology for the ultra elite, what we call big tech. But even the technology that's being utilized there, it still hasn't trickled down the way the transistor radio that I just showed you changed the quality of life or for the individual. You see, up until that point, say some 50 odd years ago, technology was being created to improve, in other words, people were using ice boxes or primitive, refrigerators, wringer washing machines, right? There were no dryers, right? The air conditioning units were non-existent, or the people that could afford them, they were these bulky, ridiculous things, all right? With all kinds of condensation, heavy use of Freon, which ultimately actually put a hole in the ozone atmosphere. And so what happened was there was a move with technology to improve everything that had to do with the quality of life for the average taxpayer, citizen of the country. Remember, this is a this is a constitutional republic. It's, that's what this is. So we pay taxes. In fact, the average worker, person who does actually have a job, when you calculate all of your taxes, you pay more than half of what you earn. I don't care if you get a tax rebate at the end of the year or not. You're paying sales tax. You're paying city tax. If you're a property owner, you've got property taxes. You've got privilege to live in a city tax. Federal taxes, state tax. I mean, it's everything's taxed. And then there's taxes within taxes. So when you get your bill from your internet service or your water company or whatever it is, they're putting their taxes. They're putting surcharges, which are taxes on that. So over half of the money you earn, you basically are, this is a tax farm. You're cattle on a tax farm. I do that all the time. I haven't done it in a couple of days, but I did do it recently. That's you. That's you to the powers that be. You're just cattle on their tax farm. All right? Yeah. I forgot I left it on. And so the thing is, but it wasn't always that way. You see, there was an era after World War II where they were grateful to us for having saved their butts in World War II. You see, from the megalomaniac, right? The genocidal maniac, right? With the funny mustache. And so they kind of left us alone, and we had suburbs, and so the average person now could have a car, a refrigerator, and some appliances in their kitchen, and a washer and dryer eventually. And so technology and transistor radios and stereo systems and, all that kind of neat stuff. And then suddenly it kind of slowed down, and we were going to the moon and Star Trek and all that stuff. And then what? And then all the so-called hippies became yuppies, and everybody was like investing in Wall Street, and it was the me generation and materialism, but people were accumulating furniture, and look, my house is bigger than your house, and and it was just like accumulation of stuff. And while technology was involved in advancing across there, obviously we had the Apple computer. I have the original Apple computer right, behind my head. It's on the other side. That side. I show it from time to time. It's back there behind you. Don't know what you don't know. But anyway, I can't turn these lights on and off all the time. Anyway. So, but quality of life didn't improve. It started to go down. Because the corporatocracy took over. And so somewhere around that time, I don't want to get into, I want to have enough time to get this point across. Somehow it seems as if we shifted a timeline. We were on a certain trajectory, all right? But then that trajectory, hit a brick wall. So it's the year 2022, 50 years later, and we're not seeing, and we have an infrastructure that's falling apart, right? A grid system or a society that's dependent upon electricity, and we're so susceptible to actually maybe losing that grid system. People are talking about eliminating within the next 8 years or less what we call fossil fuels. I call them organic fuels, basically. This is a carbon-based society. We're carbon-based organisms. CO2 is 0.004% of the atmosphere. It's trace gas. It's not, whatever that fantasy that they've created, is nonsense. But we're not going to have the power, the ability to run the machines. And because we've been taking 2 generations of students and teaching them revisionist history or just how to pass the test so the school boards and the teachers can get their pensions and all that nonsense and get their money from the state and the federal governments, that we're not bringing up. We have 11 million jobs right now unfilled. We don't have the technology and the people capable of even operating the machines. And when things go down, like, sometimes it takes literally a whole day or days for them to get the power back on, and all the time in all parts of the country. And the so-called green energy, as they call it, is a total failure. It's just not enough. In its best form, it's just not adequate to power our society, right? Civilization. So we're on this road of self-destruction, but we're not thinking about it. Nobody's talking about it. They're just saying, yeah, we got to get rid of it. We got to go electric. Electric cars. Everybody's got to drive electric cars, but nobody knows how they're going to charge those batteries. We'll use solar and wind. No, you can't. By 2030, every existing practically every windmill will have been failed. Will have outlived its lifespan. The solar panels will be, even the big solar arrays will have been failing. These things have limited lifespans. And the only way to repair, refurbish, swap out those generators and different things used in these, in like the windmills and stuff, would require heavy equipment like cranes and things like that. It would require fuels that will be outlawed by 2030. such as diesel and gasoline. It runs heavy equipment and cranes. What will you do if in the year 2030 if there's a fire on the 60th floor of a skyscraper? You can't run a hook and ladder fire truck on batteries, at least not for a long time. You might get the ladder up, but then the thing will just die out. You won't have enough juice to pump the water. Emergency vehicles, EMT, ambulance type of things. These things weigh tons and tons. Doesn't matter what improvements are made in battery power. It's a matter of how do you charge the batteries. You see? That's the problem. We charge our batteries now using natural gas, fossil fuels and coal in this area. And, in many areas, it's coal-fired electric plants, gas-fired electric plants. These pipelines that they've basically closed down and these areas that they've said that you can't drill, open up new sources of fuel. Well, what are you going to do? How are you going to fix a bridge? How are you going to melt, a smelter to create girders to fix these some 10,000 bridges that are failing? And by then, who knows what kind of tragedies may or may not occur because of that. Because of all these bridges that are just already on the list of saying this thing's about to fail. Our power grid, right? Another 8 years from now, totally susceptible. We have a weakened magnetic field, which means we're susceptible to all kinds of things. And it's not just some kind of CME or some kind of solar outburst from the sun, but just cosmic rays and things in general, right? Or just a storm, right? And then we need the people willing to take on these jobs. How many of these young people today who are out there with picket signs, right, or behind all these causes are pushing these things? Oh, we have to save the planet. We have to save the planet. The planet's going to be here long after all of us are gone. How many of those people are becoming linemen? You know what a lineman is? Somebody that works on the lines, the power grid lines. How many of those people are learning welding, to repair bridges? How many of those people are learning, how to work with concrete? Right? It's not happening. You see? And people want these tech jobs, but the problem with the people who have the tech jobs even today, apart from the people producing chips, there's a very small percentage of people who are doing exceptional work right now. We have incredible stuff, and they're putting all their faith into this AI, right? And they'll say, well, algorithms will do this, algorithms will do that. But there's a problem. They won't. How are they going to fix the power lines? Oh, we'll have robots do that? Tesla robots? No. See, there's a thing about AI, and if I just wish more people would get my book Codex that's behind, this thing here. I mean, my latest book, obviously, is, let me just get rid of this thing. The heck. My latest book is Then What, which is a flow of consciousness. There's some interesting stuff in there. Prior to that is Codex, where I got into some discussion with the, let's see here. Not enough light being generated back there. Anyway, where I talk about AI, and I have conversations with GPT-3. And like I say, we're probably on the verge of GPT-4 I think by next year. Which means this cloud-based Siri and that sort of thing will be greatly improved. Your conversations with these things. It's saying I have one view, but it's not showing any concurrent viewers. Very weird. So they're just listening in to me to make sure, I guess, I don't Deviate. Or curiosity. Somebody on the Google campus curious to see what I'm talking about. Well, the idea here is that, 2022, a spaced out odyssey. And what I'm getting at is that somewhere along the line, we forgot about the quality of life. All right. And the technology that's been created now is not improving the quality of life for the average person. It's not helping us medically. And people will say, oh, that you're wrong. And surgeons will say, I've had surgery. And it's like, yeah, great surgery. There's interesting technology and robotics used in these things. They're making a hell of a lot of money on it, though. They charge a lot, right? But what I'm getting at is that you shouldn't have these problems in the first place. In other words, processed foods are killing us, are reducing our life expectancy. For you, the person who says, "Oh, it's 2022. I don't know what this goofball's talking about." The person who's like 25. Yeah, well, you're 25. The chances of you living past the age of 50 are very remote. Oh, I'm organic. I'm gluten free. I eat organic food and yeah, right. The FDA labels that stuff organic, unless you're growing your own garden like I do. Okay. All right. Unless you got something like this in your backyard, you're not eating organic food. Okay. And besides, there's not enough to go around. There's 330 million people in the United States, and it's growing. They're just letting people come in by the, millions. How are you going to feed all these people? GMO crops, right? What are you going to do? I mean, processed foods, high fructose corn syrup and everything, right? FDA labels it certain way. Big Pharma creating all these things, getting sued on television. Every day you see an ad on TV about some suing about some drug they, was the FDA approved a couple of years ago. Weed killers and bug killers that are proven carcinogens, and there's lawsuits against them, and settlements have been made, are still on the shelves. You can go buy them today. Right? And technology sucks. I don't know about you, but everyone I've talked to people on the phone and stuff. How many people have problems? Hey, I can't really hear you, And I'm not talking about cell phone, can you hear me now type of stuff. I'm talking about people with landlines, Wi-Fi phones, voice over IP, and cellular networks. It's like the quality of a whole ball of wax for the average person. I'm not talking somebody who can afford the high end this and the high end that. That's the breakaway civilization concept, which we do have. There's I don't know what Bill Gates' house looks like inside. I've never been in it. But I'm sure, it's a lot different than your house, no matter how much money you make. And I don't care if you're making the hundreds of thousands or 1.2 million. All right? So that's a breakaway civilization. It's like those people who work for the World Economic Forum, the Davos set. These are billionaires. All right? Jeff Bezos has like a bunker, and he can be swept, and he has a rocket ship not far from his bunker. And then he can also be swept where he's had this ark built that they had to take a bridge apart to get it out of the shipyards up in one of the It was either Norway or Sweden area. That's where he had it built. Imagine being that wealthy that you could get them to dismantle the bridge to get this giant ark that he's built for himself to survive. And he has a rocket ship to escape. I mean, it's crazy. What does he know that we don't know? And in his bunker, does he, have you seen these things that they have for sale for the rich? I've seen the promotional videos for them, the sales pitches, where they have these underground places that have these walls of video, but they don't even look like walls of video, but it looks like a Hawaiian sunrise or something like that, the entire wall. And inside they have these pools and spas and, greenhouses and growing areas. Yeah, there's this whole thing. There's this whole breakaway civilization going on. For these people that are probably are hip to this idea that this micronova may hit us sometime in the next decade or so. Or that there'll be a power down situation that we won't be able to recover from because we simply do not teach trades to people or encourage people to become tradesmen and women, that these are respectable vocations. Right? Plumbers, electricians, welders, right? Masons. People don't understand that, craftsmen and women, whatever, but I'm using the general thing that I was brought up on. It's like mankind. I'm not going to say womankind, whatever. Words. These people seem more obsessed with words and their feelings getting hurt than these topics that I'm trying to discuss here and the importance of them. So in one case, you can argue and say, well, there's this breakaway civilization, so it's not really like we've shifted in some timeline like this guy going through a portal or something, or that there's these other dimensions of time, and somehow the earth has shifted, in a frequency or something, and somewhere 50 years ago we've deviated from a certain trajectory, timeline to where we are now. And there are certain elements that were inevitable, such as developments of chips and things like the smartphone and the internet and stuff. However, many of these things were already in development years ago. Okay? I mean, the BlackBerry, in effect, Star Trek communicator in the 60s basically was the BlackBerry, right? Even looked like it. Look at it from the back or something, the side, right? I mean, the concepts, were there. The miniaturization was there. I had a fairly small cell phone in the early 90s. It fit in my hand. And I didn't have any, and it was I was able to use that just about everywhere. I noticed, when I think back at that, I was managing a radio station at the time. That's why I had one. They needed to be in constant touch in case, there was a problem at the station. But it was just a small cell phone, 30 years ago. Think about that. Almost 30 years ago. I mean, I had one of those bag type phones, that people had in their cars and stuff. But even before that, over 30 some years ago, when I was in LA, we had a company car, which is Jaguar, and we had a phone in that car phone, which is like a bag phone. But that worked fine. That long ago. I was using email 35 years ago, internationally. So a lot of people, technology, there's been basic technology has existed for those who, if you happen to have been in a position, part of that breakaway civilization, if you could afford it. But that doesn't, these are just communications technologies, if you really think about it. It's not really quality of life or death technologies. And so what happened is that we haven't improved, in other words, if you buy a refrigerator, when I bought my refrigerator, the guy told me, goes, these things only last about 5 years now. He said, do you want the warranty with that? And I'm like, not really. He goes, well, these things only last about 5 years anyway. Right? Imagine that. The guy selling it to me thought he was, being a nice guy, looked around and then said it to me, But it's the truth. Right? If you have a landline phone, I have a landline, I have a Wi-Fi landline. It's like a voice over IP thing, but I use a traditional phone. All right, when I'm out in the backyard or something. And when you go, first of all, it's hard to buy those things now. And the things you're buying, they're probably older because I don't think really there's not a market for them, so they're not making improvements on them. Because I remember the exact phone I bought about a year or so ago because I wanted one. I wanted a phone I could, And that same phone, so I bought that model. I bought it online because I looked at it. I had one of those before because it had a little thing like you peel up and you could put a plug-in a headset into it. So I wanted to be able to plug in a headset, my earbuds, more or less, the ones with wired, the ones I used to use for my iPhone, because they used to work on the same phone. But I noticed that they got rid of that. They just eliminated that thing. I'm sure if I opened up the phone, there'd be the wires going to that spot. They just decided, well, we're not going to do that anymore. Right? But again, this is all computer communications technology. As if that is the only thing that matters. And what I'm saying is that, and that's where this timeline deviation and stuff seems to be, that as if robotics, algorithms, AI, and communications technology is all that matters. But we are biological units. We require sunlight to live. We photosynthesize the same as plants. People just don't realize that. I mean, it's a slightly different process, or more complicated, but it's more than vitamin D3 from the sun. It activates an awful lot of stuff in us. It's essential to our being, all right, and our well-being. But our life expectancy has dropped in the past couple of years. We have these pharmaceutical companies that can't seem to, we have viruses that they can't seem to get a handle on. Right? I mean, they could create things, but they just keep saying, okay, now they're up to, I think the FDA just approved the 6th shot or something for this fall. The 6th. So they're obviously, for some reason, they're incapable, right? Or they don't have the will, or they don't have the intelligent enough scientists, biologists working for them, that they're able to just produce the pill or you see what I mean? So our quality of life when it comes to medicine and life expectancy is just totally being ignored. It's crazy. I mean, in the year 2022, our life expectancy has dropped by in about 20, I think it was 2019 or so that I saw that on the CDC or one of the papers, a government website. I don't talk about stuff that's just, off the top of my head. Where life expectancy dropped by 2 years in the U.S. Well, that's insane. In the year 2020, it's the year 2022, and you're telling me that I'm going to live 2 years less. I should be living like 10 years more, 20 years more. It's the future, 50 years later, right? They were talking about having a cure for cancer and all these diseases in our own time. In our own time, we're working on a cure. This is what they used to say in the 60s, 60 years ago. People would donate all this money, they'd make. They never came up with any cures for those things. Instead, cancer is the second leading cause of death in the U.S. 650,000 people a year die of cancer. Or 600,000 was the latest statistic I saw. I don't know what the current is, because the last statistics that the CDC had up were basically based on 2018 or 2019. Those numbers have risen. All they did was they added the plague in there, for the year of 2020 to 2021 or something like that. They plugged that in as the third cause or third leading cause that year or something. But it's the same old statistics, right? I know, because I screen capture stuff like that. Because that's the only way you have to watch them. They fudge numbers. They change things. So the only way where you could guarantee that you have accurate information is when you see something that's fascinating, screen capture it, because it's liable to change. It's like Wikipedia. If you read something on Wikipedia that's like, wow, that's interesting, screen capture it, because probably 2 weeks later they're going to take out that thing that you thought was interesting. But that's beside the point. In other words, why is there obesity in the United States? Why is there type 2 diabetes? Why are so many people diabetic? Why are people dying of diseases affecting their kidneys? Why are there so many people with heart stents and heart-related diseases? These are all preventable things. These are dietary, lifestyle, and dietary things, right? They're preventable, and at the very least, they should be treatable. But why are 40,000 people on average a week dying of that? Do you understand? That is the epidemic, right? Because this is ongoing. This isn't something that came along, right? This is something that's been happening prior to and is continuing to happen and growing. In other words, more and more people are dying of cancer. More and more people are dying of heart disease. More and more people are becoming diabetic. More and more people are getting type 2 diabetes. Obesity is still on the rise, right? Sadly enough, and suicides are on the rise. So that's what I'm trying to say. And what have they improved, right? Oh, we're able to, through GMO, we're able to put the pesticide in the seed, so we don't have to spray pesticides anymore. Yeah, so it's genetically modified. I'm eating pesticides now. I told you can read this thing. There's an common ingredient in pet food that is actually used in pesticides or weed killers, one or the other or both. The weed killers and pesticides that are carcinogenic are still on the shelves right now. You're going to buy some of you people out there are going to buy it and use it in your yard. And that's going to go down into the soil. And if your next door neighbor is like me and has a garden, because I think the lady next door used that stuff, because she's like freaky with, she's afraid of birds. She's afraid of green bushes and everything. Yet she's got rats in her yard. Figure that one out. And rats in her house. I saw a mouse hole or a rat hole that goes into her basement. And it's like, I'm just going to take it upon myself and patch it for her. I because I'm that type of person. She doesn't care. She's living with rats. But she's also spraying weed killer, and I had to have a radical prostatectomy. In other words, I had prostate cancer a couple of years ago. And I'm wondering, is it because she was out there spraying these chemicals all over And I'm growing a garden the past 7 years, and I'm eating all these vegetables, water, things that pull all that water and minerals from the soil, tap roots down there. And she's out there spraying these weed killers and bug killers and all this stuff. Well, maybe if you just clean up your house and you get rid of the rats and the bugs. And then she sent the bugs over to my house. So I had to go through all this kind of stuff. And I'm trying to do it the natural way, using things like boric acid and different things like that that are less, Now my cat's sick, and I'm wondering if it's because of something like, these various, who knows. So what I'm trying to get at is that, this I always talk about, that you can't be certain about any given thing. And I never outrule the science fiction aspect of a thing. Okay? Because I grew up on science fiction. That's how I started this show, reading science fiction. And I was always a futurist, and I still am a futurist. And I still keep abreast of the latest technology in chip technology, computer technology. But it's primarily communications technology. It's AI. It's leading towards robotics and machines that can basically think in a sense. All right? But it's not replacing the fact that we are biological units. It's this transhumanist idea, perhaps maybe in the mind of some of these sickos. But the idea is they still have to realize that in a country, in just the United States alone, of 330 million human beings, flesh and blood human beings, okay, that we need to consume foods. We need to have sunlight on our faces, right, on our skin, in order to, have a functioning immune system, receive vitamin D, right, activate all sorts of things. We need to breathe fresh air, right? We don't need to be in cubicles, in HVAC systems, or any of that stuff. And we need to have fresh food, clean water. Not this like chemically produced bottled water by these former soft drink companies that lost, revenue from soft drinks and then got into the bottled water business, and they sell purified water for $1 something a bottle. Who knows what they're purifying it with? See, it's like GMO or whatever. So the technology is not improving human life. We're dying at greater numbers than ever before, than 50 years ago. But you could play a game on your smartphone. You could get a $700 or $800 new iPhone that's got a real fast chip in it. How does that improve your quality of life? It's just, all it does is give you a diversion from life, from the pain, the suffering that you or your family members or friends are going to go through because of the lack of attention that's being paid to the Look, the only thing you have to do is eat, really, is consume things, right? Eat and drink. And have shelter over your head, of course, from the, shelter from the cold or the heat. To live, in order to live, that's it. Like I've said before, the happiest you've probably ever been, and I hope you have experienced it, has probably no technology has existed during it. Excuse me. I don't know if you heard that. These guys think
really funny. Really funny.
I'm just a human being, give me a break.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
The happiest you've ever been has probably been without technology. I've said this many, many a time, and I'll say it again. If you're fortunate enough to have been naked in a bed with a person making love, all right? No material, no clothing, no materialistic devices, material objects, no technology, no smartphone, no nothing. Experiencing two human beings, experiencing each other, almost losing consciousness, becoming one. It's probably the happiest. It's exaltation. It's ecstasy. It's the ultimate experience a human being can have. Now, if you're incapable of doing that, similarly, you might, and say an older person or a handicapped person might have the best experience they've had might be sitting in a room, in a chair, right? Or in a field or on a porch and having a great conversation, right? With another individual, a stimulating conversation, right? Or, something that, something about truth and beauty, philosophy, right? The arts. Another person, and people many of whom I've known, might have experienced this feeling of exaltation, climbing a mountain peak, looking out on nature, going on in nature, a hike, looking at a waterfall, a sunrise, sunset. Okay? No technology, right? No devices, just pure humanity. The highest and best when you look at fine arts, the arts. All right? The highest and best that we've achieved is without any of this stuff. And this isn't being a Luddite, as they call it. No. This is saying in the course of your day, or to take a weekend, vacation or something. It's not saying not use communications technology. I'm using it. I'm no Luddite. Look at me. I'm using it to the extreme. Yeah, camera 2 up there. I could turn on camera 3 and camera 4. I actually have 4 active cameras right now. Not to mention some security, other things I won't even mention. No, I embrace the technology. I love communications technology. I'm using it. But the point of the matter is, I'm a human being, and you're a human being, and what have we done? We've deviated, right? This timeline, has just somehow, we seem to be on a certain trajectory, and we just, the fork in the road, we went the wrong way, right? Or did the smart people, I'm moving this thing around to put attention to it, did the smart people just escape through that time portal? But you understand what I'm saying? Our focus as a society is on the wrong thing. People are trying to pit people against each other. People are having these civil wars over in Europe. That's a civil war. That's all that is. It's a proxy war, right? Watch yesterday's show. I explained that. I have about 3 or 4 shows where I basically detail what's going on over there. It's war-profiteering, but it's a civil war. All right? It's none of our business, really. Really isn't. And the president of the United States could end that war with one phone call. They don't want to. Too much pressure from the war profiteers, military contractors. It's the same as disease. We could end these ridiculous diseases with, but there's too much money to be made, hundreds of billions of dollars to just prolong things, right? Nobody wants to cure cancer. You cure cancer, you put the cancer industry out of business. It's hundreds of billions of dollars industry. You say, oh no, those people can't be that. I know doctors who care about people. Yeah, well, they're not in charge. They don't know what the upper echelon is. All right? You know, you have to understand, people, whether they like it or not, are basically marionettes. You know? It's the same with the people on the media. You say, oh, that person isn't that bad. You're probably right. Some of those announcers on the media aren't that bad. They don't even know they're marionettes. You see? Just like you don't know you're a marionette of the media and politicians, who are also marionettes of the corporatocracy. You know? Like the World Economic Forum, which is basically an organized crime syndicate. You know, not everybody knows who's, you know, if you work for a company, it's like being at the FBI. You don't know who's up there on the 7th floor or whatever floor they're on now. You don't know what's going on. But I'll tell you what, it's all hypocrisy for profit, as I say all the time. Right? It's hypocrisy for profit. Because we're not doing anything to improve the quality of life. And that we're human beings. So this Agenda 2030 to outlaw energy is basically, well, how you going to, you know, everybody needs to have an electric car. Okay. Well, how are you going to charge the batteries? You don't have any means of powering them. Oh, well, just build more windmills and more solar and more. No, you won't, because you need, let's just use your term, fossil fuels to power the heavy equipment to build those things. You can't fix bridges without melting and creating steel girders and then raising them with cranes and digging ditches with these excavating machines and pounding things down, right? And having dump trucks, you know, and bulldozers, right? What do you think these things run on? They don't run on batteries. And even if they did run on batteries, you'd have to charge the batteries somehow. See, this is the thing. So there's some kind of fantasy world going on right now. And that's why I say it's like we're in an alternative reality where it's people aren't, you know, or mass insanity. You know, I can't be the only person that asks that simple question. How are you going to charge the batteries without fuel? When these things are breaking down every day, catching fire, the fans, the windmill fans are just flying off. Heavy winds, and we got a lot of heavy winds because our magnetic field's weak and our jet stream has nothing to do with CO2. They're bending over sideways. There are literally 1 million of these things that are already out of commission. 1 million. We don't have the footprint for solar panels, all right, to run the skyscrapers, to charge all these vehicles, to run the HVAC systems in an aging society, in all the nursing homes and care facilities where they need to have air conditioner on down south 24/7. Or in the winters, half the year it's cold. Like I told you before, I started this show off. Let's look at it again. It's currently 34 degrees outside. My heat is on. Well, how are you going to heat a house? My house is heated with natural gas. So you say, well, switch over to electric. Well, how are you going to create the electric? Do you see? We're not thinking as a society. We're creating communications devices. Do you think that Tesla robots, do you think that better improved AI, well, they'll come up with solutions that we can't. These supercomputers will come up with solutions. Yeah, I'll tell you what their solutions are going to be in advance. You might as well hear it from me first. The supercomputers and GPT-4 AI is basically going to be asked the question, well, how do we solve this problem that Tony Caravan Live raised? You're going to have to go back to fossil fuels because you got to charge the batteries somehow. And windmills was a T-Bone Pickens bad mistake, and Obama gave tax breaks and people took advantage and built them all over the place, and now they're all falling apart, and by 2030 there probably won't be a single one operating. And without fossil fuels, you're not going to be able to fix them or refurbish them or put in the next generation ones, because how are you going to raise them? They're pretty darn big. And these solar panels don't last forever. All right? That's what your supercomputer is going to tell you. That's what your next generation AI is going to say. Right? You're going to go to Mars? There's no atmosphere on Mars. And so what? Hey, look, I'm on Mars. It's like the moon. Hey, let's plant a flag on the moon. Look, mine, right? Like children. It's craziness. It's mass insanity. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You know, we're living in an either alternative universe. Somehow things have switched. We switched frequencies or some kind of like, you know, you have to imagine it in a real sci-fi way. If your mind can open it up, it's as if the vibrations of the universe, you know, if you believe in this multiverse type of thing, or if various, you know, levels, densities, or whatever you want to call it, it's as if suddenly like something happened, we're not even aware of it, and we like shifted into a different like dimension, or not. We're now living in an alternative universe, but we don't even know it or something. Or some of us are. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I went through that portal and and you guys you can't figure out what the hell I'm talking about. That's why I got 0 viewers, right? Because you're going like, what's this guy talking about, man? Quality of life, you know, all that stuff. We don't care about any of that stuff. We just want communications technology. We just want to be able to ask Siri or Cortana or, you know, we just want to play video games and watch movies about revisionist history and weird stuff. We don't care if we die at age 50. We don't care if we have to have, 5 operations. Right? Well, you should care. And someday you're going to care. Because when I had to, have a radical prostatectomy because I had prostate cancer, and when I had like 3 or 4 operations because they're trying to get some kidney stone out, and they didn't know how to do it. One of the doctors just like stopped in the middle of the operation and like kind of ran away. That was a really weird story. Like he couldn't do it. He was afraid, and I guess he was afraid of getting sued. He didn't know what he was doing, and he must have been a fraud. And then I get doctors telling me they want to take my gallbladder out now. So I've been eating up for the past 120 days. I've been doing my own health diet to basically to try to stave that off. I don't want it done. I don't want any more. I don't want any more anybody digging around in my abdomen anymore. But this is all because of what? It wasn't like So, you have to understand, wait till it happens to you, Computer communications technology is not going to save you. There's not going to be some answer from a supercomputer, all right? The human brain is a supercomputer. We have brilliant minds on this planet. Perhaps we should have been doing what France did. We should have been developing nuclear energy. But, there's no way this country is going to make this deadline, right? Of 2030 or whatever. It's like, it's not happening, man. It's pretty much game over. So my advice to you is you figure a way. If I were you, I really would try to figure a way to grow a garden. I'd really start thinking about your loved ones. I'd really start looking at, instead of wasting your money on communications technology solely, I'm not saying get rid of it, but instead of wasting your money solely on all this tech, right? It has nothing to do with the quality of your life, and you thinking you're invincible because you're 25, 35, or even 40. Once you turn 50, you're probably going to be dead. if you make it that long, right? You know, they keep talking, oh, there's going to be, the next one that comes along is going to be worse than this one. Yeah, why'd they have those bioweapons labs over in Ukraine, by the way? What are they doing over there? So I don't know, man. People talking about pitting people against each other, wars, rumors of wars. I don't know. It seems to me like there's some crazy stuff going on. Well, anyway, this show's kind of running late.
Good morning.
Like I always say, you know, I believe it's still 20% off my shirts, hoodies, hats, you know, you name it. I got all kinds of stuff for sale. Go to rockflux.com and click on the link to my store that sells clothing and mess around. Look under the accessories. There's all kinds of different things with all kinds of different sayings. You got to like use your brain. It's not like, I didn't make it in such a way. It's a third-party store. I only make 50 cents or $1 if you buy something anyway. Get my book, Then What, or Codex if you want to know more about me and about the stuff I'm talking about. And get the print version. Because if you get a Kindle version or an Apple Books version, they're available there. They don't, like, flow right. Even though I've done them on, I created my latest book on using an Apple program and literally said, file, send to Apple Books. It still didn't come out the way it should. And Great Solar Stuff has things on there besides solar. It's got power backup because this grid is iffy at best. And you're going to want to have that stuff, you know, because we're going to be facing a lot of grid down situations. I'm not monetized on YouTube, okay? I don't make big money on this stuff. I make no money. Nobody's bought anything. I got 20% off. Nobody's bought it. Why wouldn't you? You could probably get a shirt, an $18 shirt for $15 or something with 20% off. Support the site. Support me. Share this. Anyway, all the best of luck. This is service to you. It's not for me. Take care.